Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and first things first, happy Halloween to all you players out there and player haters. So, with that, let's dive into the news, because in gun owner news here in the United States, if you own a firearm and are a U.S. citizen, heads up to you, you've been data breached by the manufacturer of your firearm. Now, here's what's going on, and I think this is absolutely insane, especially when we start talking about the logistics and beliefs of essentially the gun owning community in the United States. And for the record, the United States has hundreds of millions of guns. We love our guns. So with that, we're going to turn to Corey Johnson of ProPublica, and holy cow, I didn't see this one coming, but for years, America's most iconic firearm manufacturers have been turning over sensitive personal information on hundreds of thousands of their customers to political operatives. Now, those operatives in turn have been secretly employing these details to rally firearm owners to elect pro-gun politicians running for Congress and the White House, according to ProPublica. Now, for the record, we have firearm owners across the entire spectrum of the United States. We have them on the left and the right. We've got Democrats and Republicans. You know, there's this stigma that's like, oh, it's only Republicans that own guns. That is simply not true, although they own a lot of guns too, right? So by virtue of that, this is actually really interesting, because given the diversity of firearm ownership, and again, this is baked in to the U.S. Constitution, it's the Second Amendment of the United States, our right to essentially bear arms. This is a bit of a problem in the sense that the gun lobby is going one way or the other. I can also understand this in the sense that the gun lobby is looking at, let's say, the Republicans to be more pro-gun than the Democrats, which is also a true statement as well in terms of politically elected figures. But nevertheless, this is a data breach, and I didn't want to do this on my normal Sunday breaches of the week, because I think this is so unbelievably important to firearm owners out there to know that you've basically been breached by the manufacturer of your weapon. And so by virtue of that, this clandestine sharing of basically your identity without your knowledge and consent is a huge departure, essentially, for an industry that has prided itself on thwarting efforts to track who owns firearms in the United States. And that's exactly right. I mean, you look at groups like the NRA and others, they have consistently come out and said, we don't want a national registry, of gun database, that it's bad enough that ATF, is registering all the firearms as you're purchasing them, but it goes state by state. In some states, all you need is a driver's license to buy a gun. Some states you require filling out forms. Here in Illinois, we have what's called a FOID, or Firearm Owner Identification Card. So it really is disparate. But the one thing that the firearm lobby has never wanted is an actual national database. And it seems like they've created that. And that's a problem, because they're turning it over to political operatives, obviously, who work for the government or elected officials. At least 10 of basically these businesses. And we are talking, for the record, you've heard of them, especially if you're an American, Glock, Smith & Wesson, Remington, Marlin and Mossberg, and more have handed over your name, your address, and your other private data to essentially the gun industry's chief lobbying group, known as the National Shooting Sports Foundation, or NSSF. Now, they basically have entered all of that data that they have on you into a massive database. Now, this data initially came from decades of warranty cards filled out by customers and returned to gun manufacturers for rebates or repair or replacement programs. I mean, obviously, if you're buying an expensive weapon, you're going to send in the warranty card to say, hey, if this thing breaks in one way, shape, or form, I'm obviously going to want a replacement the same way you would a television, right? So a ProPublica review of dozens of warranty cards from the 1970s, that's how far back this goes, through today, found that basically that some promised customers their information would also be kept strictly confidential. But that is not what is happening here. Others said information could be shared with third parties for marketing and sales. It goes both ways. Now, none of these cards inform the buyers that their details would be used by lobbyists and consultants to essentially try and win elections. And I think that is something huge. Now, this ProPublica article is thousands of words long. I'm not going to quote the whole thing. That is the primer. I urge anybody that is interested in security, privacy, data breaches, or are a firearm owner in the United States to actually look and see what is actually happening. They've got screenshots of evidence and everything. and essentially to the point of the article, this is absolutely correct. When you're looking at the NSSF or the NRA, one of the things that they really tout is that privacy side of it. It's your right. You can do what you want. We recently had a Supreme Court case on ghost guns, people manufacturing their own weapons, and that would be basically not have serial numbers and be harder to track by law enforcement, all those kinds of things. This is all part of that, in the sense of, for lack of a better term, staying off the grid, or at least from the prying eyes of the government, as you are just having a right to privacy, as a citizen, and which means guns and everything else. And so this is a real, I think, slap in the face to firearm owners. And by virtue of that, I think it really behooves, basically anybody that owns a gun to look into this, to question, the Glocks and the Smith and Wessons of the world, Remington, all that. I don't know about Springfield and some of the others, but the point is that this is an issue. And this is going to be continuing in an age where we are data mined simply by, going on Facebook, watching a video, being tracked just if you're going to a website to buy whatever you're buying. This is adding to that, especially something that's supposed to be sacrosanct under the U.S. Constitution. So I'll leave it at that. I think it's a huge mess. We're going to see where this goes, but heads up to you if you think your right to privacy as a gun owner is being enforced. It's honestly not, and the manufacturers are doing it to you. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.